The season began. This was just another off season of this. Maybe this will be the year. Maybe they'll win this. They'll make it for sure. Maybe this will finally be the year they even win a playoff series. I think we got it. Looks like we might have got ahead of ourselves. So how do you assess the first half of the year? Injuries obviously played a huge role for this team.
Yeah, when the season began, there was great optimism, and I was one of them. I picked the Reds to win the division, but who knew that Ryan Ludwig was going to go head first into third base and tear up his shoulder and miss almost the entire season, and that forced manager Dusty Baker to shuffle with the lineup he wanted. He wanted Brandon Phillips to bat second, but he had to move him down to fourth, and then he had to move Zach Cozart up to number 2, and that didn't work at all. The offense didn't function well, and then you had other injuries. Johnny Cueto goes down 3 times. So I guess what we're saying is fans should be amazed that the Reds went to the All-Star break only 5 games out of first place. Yeah, they're in third place, 2 teams to climb over. But all in all, with all the injuries, they're 11 games over 500. They're still within shooting distance. They lead the wild card for the National League by several games. So they're still in very good position to do something in the postseason.
I think, Votto was hurt last year and there were a few injuries, but the pitching staff was the big, that was the big story last year. First time, they 5 starters other than 1 spot start for a guy. Health is the biggest thing when it comes to sports. They were lucky last year, and it's the exact opposite this year, isn't it?
Yeah, they were very lucky last year to go an entire season with the same 5 starting pitchers. They've only lost 1 this year. Johnny Cueto is the only one that has gone down. The other 4 have been very consistent. Tony Cingrani has been a great plug-in for him, so that hasn't hurt them that much. But what has really hurt them is the bullpen. When you lose Sean Marshall, your number 1 setup guy, and then you lose Jonathan Broxton, who is also a setup guy, that's going to hurt. And that messed things up in the bullpen for quite a while. Then the bullpen got back together just before the end of the All-Star break and had a real good run. But the big thing has been the lack of production with runners in scoring position. We've talked about that all year, and Dusty talks about it. And they lead the league in on-base percentage, which is amazing, but they just don't get those guys on. They lead them out there on the bases, and that's hurt them more than anything.
That comes down to a select few players. Obviously, Cozart gets a lot of heat. There's a lot of guys to blame for that. I mean, where do you think the issue lies when it comes to getting runners to actually cross the line? They get them on, as you said, but they don't get them home.
I think it's throughout the lineup. Nobody has been really, really great. Now, Brandon Phillips has a lot of RBIs, but he's also left a lot of guys out there with Joey Votto and Shin-Soo Choo getting on base so much. They're number 1 and 2 guys in the league and getting on base. They always seem to be getting on base, but Cozart either hits into a double play or doesn't move the runners over. And then you go down to Jay Bruce, who's always hot and cold. He's ended the All-Star break on one of his cold spells after having a very good hot spell. So it goes all completely through the order. Votto hasn't driven in as many runs as he usually does, and that's hurt him a little bit too. His batting average is still up there. He still takes a lot of walks, still gets on base, but he hasn't been the old Votto-matic that we saw a couple of years ago when there were runners on base. He was going to get them in. Hasn't been doing that this year.
What do you think Dusty needs to do? I mean, he can't go out there and hit for him. You can fire the hitting coach, which is what everyone's wanted to do for years, unfortunately, for Brooke. But, what actually has to happen? I mean, it's how baseball works, right? Someone's got to get hits. They can't go out there and do it for him.
No, absolutely. They talk about firing Brooke Jacoby all the time, and I have never seen a hitting coach work harder than that man. He's always watching video, watching the players on videotape to see any flaws in their approach. He's always standing behind the batting cage, watching them hit. As you said, he cannot go up and hit for them. He can only tell them what they're doing wrong, try to fix their stroke. There's just nothing that he can do other than to show what they're doing wrong and have them try to go up there and do it right. As far as manager Dusty Baker goes, it's the same thing with managing. You can only manage what you have. You can only make up the lineup and put out the lineup that you think is the best for that day. Dusty takes a lot of heat for his lineups, but he studies statistics all morning long before a game, studies matchups, tries to put players into positions that they are most likely to succeed, and tries to pull them out of situations where they won't succeed. But you know, you can only put out there what you have, and if they don't produce, there's not much you can do about it.
Do you think a trade is needed?
I would like to see them have maybe a right-handed bat in the middle of the lineup. Doesn't look like Ryan Ludwig's going to be back until mid-August or so. That could be too late by then, and he's missed almost a whole year. Who knows how good he's going to be when he comes back, if he's going to be fully recovered from that shoulder injury and be able to hit. So they could use a right-handed bat. I've heard people talk about getting Giancarlo from the Miami Marlins, and I heard that the price might be just Aroldis Chapman and Billy Hamilton. Now, that's absurd. You know, why would you ruin your future to get one fix from one player? So Walt Jocketty has tried, but the last couple times I've talked to him, he said it doesn't look as if there's going to be much out there. Teams just aren't trading like they usually do. One of the reasons being that with 2 wild cards in each league now, a lot of teams still think they're still in it, and they're not going to trade good players. So there's not a whole lot out there, and there's not a whole lot of trading going on.
And honestly, I mean, a couple of years ago we were talking about how deep the minors were for the Reds, but you don't see that. I mean, I don't see that in the minor league system. They don't have a lot of tools unless they trade some of these guys they're counting on, the guys that they've actually groomed, right?
Right. The only ones you hear about are their top 3 and 4 prospects, and that's the guys that the other teams want. If you're going to get a good player, you have to give up something, which means the Reds would have to give up something from their major league roster or one of their top prospects. And maybe it might help for the rest of this season, but it wouldn't help much down the road in the future. You just don't want to trade the franchise to try to make a fix now, because everybody always talks about making a great trade, bringing in a great player, and I myself say bring in a right-handed power hitter. You don't know if it's going to work. Look at the Los Angeles Dodgers last year. I mean, they went out toward the end of the year and spent millions and millions and millions and brought in 4 superstars, and it didn't work. They didn't win. And they started out this year with those same players and struggled and struggled and struggled. And just right about now, they're starting to make a move. So just making a trade and trying to plug things up doesn't always work.
As far as the starting pitchers are concerned, I mean, Johnny is a huge, maybe they should have shelved him earlier for a longer period of time, and there's no telling. I mean, when you look at this pitching staff moving forward, I mean, Matt Latos has been great. Mike Leake's such a surprise. Tony's been good, obviously pitch count high, but when you look at all these guys, they have a good staff.
Mm-hmm.
They just need that one ace maybe back to make a difference, right?
Yeah, losing Johnny Cueto when you lose your number 1 pitcher, that's definitely going to hurt. I mean, look at the playoffs last year. The Reds lose Cueto in the first game, and while they managed to win 2 games in San Francisco, it shuffled their pitching up so much that they lost the next 3 at home, and I don't think they would have done that had Cueto not been hurt, because Cueto might have been able to pitch that 5th game. And that's all it takes. You lose one guy. I mean, you got 5 starters, and they've plugged in Cingrani, who's done a great job. When you lose your ace, that's going to hurt. But Latos and Bailey and Leake and even Cingrani have all been very good. So starting pitching is still there. It's still good enough.
You talked about, that it seems like they're in such a big hole. 3rd place sounds really bad, but you look at it, and they're just as many games as they are back, they are up in the wild card. Do you think they have what it takes to kind of withstand that, to at least hold on to the wild card, or do you see this team fading?
Starting the second half, they start with 3 games against Pittsburgh at home. So there's a team that's right ahead of them. That's the toughest assignment. I do like the fact that Dusty is starting Mike Leake in the first game, because to me he was the best pitcher that they had, the most consistent. And then he's going with Homer Bailey, who pitches well against the Pirates, had a no-hitter against him last year, and then Matt Latos. I think that's the best 3 pitchers, and starting against the Pirates, they need to get a running start, because then they go on the West Coast for games in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, and usually when people go west, they're going for vacation. It seems like the Reds go west to get beat up, and after those 3 teams, they come home and play the Cardinals and the Oakland A's. So they've got 3 weeks of really, really tough opposition, and it's put up or shut up time. I know Dusty has said it, the media has said it, and I've even said it. We don't think the Reds have played their best baseball yet, but what if they have? If they have played their best baseball, and they're not going to get any better than that, they're going to have a tough way to go. But these next 3 weeks, with all these teams they're playing, if they play their best baseball, they'll be still hanging right in there. So it really is do or die time right now.
So you think by August we're going to know if we should be buying playoff tickets or maybe hanging up our stuff and bringing out the Bengals gear?
Yeah, there's a good possibility of that. I know the Dodgers are coming strong on that, right behind the Reds on that wild card thing. They still have a comfortable lead now, but by the end of this trip, you'll never know. That's the one good thing the Reds have. They could still finish third place and still make the playoffs. So there's all hope is not lost if they don't win the division. Many teams have gone into the World Series as wild card teams and won. The Florida Marlins did it twice. The Cardinals have done it. I think the Boston Red Sox did it. So when it's all over and said and done, you say they're World Series champions, not wild card champions. So yeah, there's something out there to shoot for.
Do you think, what's your prediction? I mean, moving forward for the rest of the season, do you see them doing it? Do you see the Cardinals or Pirates fading? Where do you see the Reds in the end?
I think it's going to go right down to the end, and I think it's going to be very tough for the Reds. I don't think the Cardinals are going to fade. They look pretty strong to me. They have great pitching. Pittsburgh has faded the last 2 years. I don't see that happening this year. I think they have the confidence now. The starting pitching is great. So it's going to be tough for the Reds to get past two teams. If they start playing their best baseball, which everybody is looking for, I think they could still make a run at it. I'm guessing that they're going to probably make it as a wild card. I don't see them winning the division.